Hi everybody and welcome to the Surface Interval in association with Mpora. So training schedules for scuba divers are built a lot like a ladder or a tree, both of which are made to be climbed, but there is a branch of that tree that isn't made for everybody to climb, the professional branch. Professional divers, and by professional divers I'm talking about instructors and teaching assistants, not commercial divers, they're very, very different, but professional divers teach and guide new divers to create the next generation of scuba divers. But it shouldn't just be the next run on a ladder for you to automatically reach for. It's not for everybody. If you're thinking about going pro, then there are definitely some things that you need to consider, because it's not just a natural progression. Sure, you can sign up, you can go through the course and the examinations and probably come out through the other end with a new cert card and an instructor number, but that doesn't necessarily make you an instructor. So let's take a look at a few things that you need to consider and if you're ready to go pro. You need to be able to explain a single concept in at least 6 different ways. Just because you understand a concept doesn't mean that all of your students will understand it in the same way. So you're going to need to be able to pivot and explain things differently in a way that all of your students can understand. So, I mean, you have to try to come up with a repertoire of analogies that people can relate to. I used to use cars a lot. Most people, even kids, understand most parts of a car and kind of how they work. So you can say that your SPG is a bit like the petrol gauge on your car. Different BCDs are like different types of car. A lightweight travel BCD is a lot like a sports car. It's very light, but it is quite delicate. Backplate and wing setups are more like a pickup truck or something. They're more practical, but they're heavy and clunky. It's also crucial that you never, ever skip over any steps in any procedures. You have to explain everything. It might be blindingly obvious to you that you do a certain something between steps, but you've been doing this for years. They've only just started, and why you're doing things as well is incredibly important to explain. If you don't have the patience to explain the same thing over and over again, because that is going to be your career, doing the same courses again and again, then your career is just going to suck as an instructor. Every course is going to be a little bit different because the students all bring something to the table, but what you're going to be teaching is going to be the same. You'll build a routine that works for you and most students, but you need the patience to be able to explain something again and again in slightly different ways to someone until they understand without getting frustrated. You need to be the one that everybody looks to that fixes a problem, both in the water and out of the water. Things go wrong, and you will be the one that has to make sure that the situation has the best outcome at the end. Students will read your actions and act accordingly. If you're panicking and flustered, then students are just going to freak out and make things worse. So you need to be calm and deliberate when bad things happen to keep everybody else calm. Things break and they just go wrong underwater, so you need to be able to calm an entire group of strangers down whilst dealing with that issue without talking, just using hand signals. The best way to do this is just to experience everything. If you've seen things happen before, then you should be calmer the next time it happens on your watch. But you need to be able to just sort things out and be that rock that people can rely on. Students they're gonna hold on to you, literally, and to keep them calm, and you need to be there for them. It really doesn't matter what you want anymore in the water, you are there for your students. You need to take a good look at yourself, your gear, and the way that you dive, because in your students' eyes, you are what they should strive to become. If you're wearing ratty old dive gear that you bought off eBay and your students they're just going to see that and they're going to copy you, or worse, they'll go elsewhere. If I'm looking for an instructor and there's one in up-to-date kit who looks good, looks the part, and then another one in just kind of grubby second-hand gear that's like 20 years old, sure, there is an argument for looking experienced, but really Top tier divers should be wearing top tier dive gear. You're also working with both adults and children, and you are always working. You can't just take a break whenever you want, and you need to act responsibly all the time. The way that you do things and act in the water as well will stick with all of your students. So if you're touching things, you can't hold your trim, you're kicking up the bottom, the students are going to think, oh, okay, well, this is okay. You may need to work on how your diving looks to others, and you definitely need to work on your fundamental skills. You need to be able to do all of the skills slowly and efficiently. So if you can't handle taking your mask off on demand, tough. You need to be able to, and take your time doing it so that all of your students can take a good look at what you're doing in the water. A vast majority of new instructors don't renew their license after their second year. It's not necessarily that they were bad instructors or they couldn't do the job, but it's often that they don't really treat it as a real job, a career path where they can make a living. Before you start, you need to take a good look around and look at the competition that you're facing when you join the industry, and if there's even a place for you in the diving world. And you need to remember your worth as well. Too many instructors just undervalue their skills and expertise and just drag the price of training for the entire industry down, and we don't need that. There are thousands of instructors being signed off around the world each year. What makes you stand out among the rest? You need to be useful and attractive to dive centers and students as well. If you can't teach popular courses or speak multiple languages, you don't have your own kit, these are the sort of things that there are plenty of other new instructors who might already be able to do those things. So when you're starting out, think about additional skills, not just that instructor ticket, additional skills that you can bring to the dive center and fit that into your schedule. You need to plan if you need that extra training so that you don't just hit the ground running, because realistically, that might not happen. You need to know your stuff, and the best way to do that is to simply just dive as much as possible. If you don't know the difference between different hose fittings on a regulator, or roughly how much lead a certain person should be wearing based on what they're wearing, then you need to spend a bit more time on a dive boat. The more time you spend on dive sites and around dive boats, the more things that you'll see go wrong, and how professional divers deal with those problems. Learn from them and pick up any cues that you might notice that lead up to issues or that professionals act on. Most problems are fixed before they even become a problem, because an experienced diver can see those small red flags that show themselves before it becomes a problem. Just spending time around students will teach you how they act and respond to certain cues, and that's essential to know as a new instructor. Without experience, you'll miss cues that could sometimes lead to something going wrong later. 100 easy dives in your logbook where nothing has ever gone wrong isn't going to cut it. You need the dives where things do go wrong to teach you, and in hard conditions as well. Flat blue waters, crystal clear water, that's not going to prepare you for when you do your work when the weather turns. So do your best to get in as much diving experience as possible before you sign up, and that will make you a better instructor. So if you've taken a good look at yourself and your diving as well, and you think that you're up to it, just double check yourself. You've considered the schedule and how long it can take. You want to take at least a year or two of diving before you even start down the professional route, and make sure that you can make it. Do your homework and make sure that there is actually a real job for you at the end of training, and that it's even what you want to do as a career. It's not all palm trees and mojitos. You actually have to put your back into it and treat it like a career. What tips would you pros recommend the next generations of instructors do to become a successful dive instructor? I mean, how did you know that you were ready? Personally, I spent a couple of years working at a dive center 5 days a week, so I knew that I had the experience, and I'd pretty much seen everything there was to see for the dive industry where I was, so Instructor was the right step for me and not just a passing fancy or an idea for a gap year. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.